Hello students, we are back again with another lab, and in this lab we're going to be looking at just a little trick that I like to do when I make a map that actually involves a lot of the things that we've learned in class. And so first you'll want to get your ArcGIS Pro open, and I just opened up a blank template, and then I made sure that I was connected to my data folder. If you cannot see that, you very simply just have to right click on the folders connection, go to add folder connection, find your data folder, and then click OK. Now then it'll show up. Underneath the data folder, I'm only going to add today the FS ownership layer. So I right click, add to new map. And there it is. And then we're going to keep on this. We're going to turn off the world topo map. We're going to keep the hillshade on. So the hillshade's a raster, and it provides us with this three-dimensional look here. I'm going to zoom into Crater Lake here. And the first little trick we're going to do here is I'm going to open up Google. No, I probably don't actually have to go to the Google page, but I'm an old dog, new tricks type thing. And so I'm going to Google BLM, which stands for Bureau of Land Management, not Black Lives Matter. And I'm going to search for map ownership colors. We'll see if that pops it up. And it's right here. It says Publications Standards, Manual Handbook 1. If you click that, this is actually a super useful page that if you're going to be making maps in the future, you might want to save this somewhere. And what it does is it shows you the official colors for all of the federal and state ownerships. And we're interested, since this is Forest Service, we're interested in the red, green, blue values for U.S. Forest Service. So you'll see we have USFS Wilderness Area, but if we go a little farther up here, we have USFS, that's also Wilderness Area, USFS O&C, and then here we have U.S. Forest Service. And I want these three numbers right here, 204, 235, 197. Okay, so those are the official RGB values for the U.S. Forest Service land. So if I go back to my map, I want to make this ownership that official color. And so to do that, I just click on the color here, and that brings up my symbology. I can go to Properties, and this little Layers option here, and then I'm going to click on the Fill right here. And then right here where I can choose the color, I can click on that. Color Properties. And here's where I can punch in those values. So the first one was 204. Then we had 235. And 197. Click OK. And then while I'm in here, I'm also going to go and click on the outline and drop the width to 0. This is just something I like to do with ownership because I think it looks better without an outline. So now if I click Apply, look at that. We now have the official Forest Service green on our map, and it's already looking a lot more, well, you could almost say professional looking. But what if, you see how I have three-dimensional relief here, but I don't have it here. So how do I get it here? Well, I have to make this layer transparent. In order to do that, we simply click on the layer one time, and that'll bring up the feature layers context menu right here. We click feature layer. Under appearance, you'll then see that we have a, so this might have changed. I think when I was in the lab it was a little bit different now. I think yours, I think this is a transparency right here, but yours is going to say transparency where mine has this picture. And let's make it 25%. You'll see there now it shows through. And that's going to give my map a really nice three-dimensional look. But there's a little bit of a problem. The hillshade that doesn't have anything over the top of it's more prominent than the hillshade that's underneath this because there's a layer on top. You see that? And this would draw the viewer's eye to these non-Forest Service locations more, and that is not what we want. So this is a little trick that I've learned to make the map look better in my opinion. And so we would do this like zoomed way out here. If we were making the map, we'd do the entire thing. But to make it a little simpler, we're going to stay zoomed in close to Crater Lake. You don't have to have it exactly like I do. And then we're going to go back to our catalog. And in catalog, underneath our data folder, we can right click on data, go to new, and then we're going to click File Geodatabase. And it's going to create a geodatabase here. And we're going to name this Other Ownership. Click off of it. Now you'll see that this is empty. If I click the little arrow here, there's nothing in it, just a container. This is not a feature class. This contains feature classes. Okay? It's just a container. And in order to create, we have to create a new feature class. We right click on the geodatabase and we go to New Feature Class. Name, we're going to call it Other Ownership. Don't need an alias. Since it's an ownership layer, we know it's going to be a polygon. This is something to remember. This kind of changes depending on your scale, though. If we had a map of the United States, our cities would be points. But if we had a map of just San Francisco, that would become a polygon. So you have to remember your scale that you're doing the map at does kind of determine on what kind of geometry you're going to need. But ownership's going to be a polygon. We can then go to Next. That gives us the option here to add fields. We don't need to do so. Click Next. This is where you can choose the coordinate system. We're fine with the default one here. So this is a geographic coordinate system, GCS, North America, 1983. Whatever it defaulted to, yours might actually default to something else, but it's fine. Click Next. Ignore that. Next, next, and we can finish. So we have ourselves a brand new feature class right here, but it's empty. Okay? You'll notice that it does not say .shp on the end of it because it's not a shapefile. It's just a feature class. These are also feature classes, but they are shapefiles. That's why they're green and they have the extension. This is gray and it has no extension. This is a geodatabase feature class. We can then add that to the map. And what I want to do is I'm going to create a rectangle. This feature class to be a rectangle that extends for the viewable area. So to do that, I go to the Edit tab. And then I go to this create button. And you'll see that I have two options here. I'm going to be editing the other ownership layer, so I click on it. And that gives me all these editing options. So I can draw polygons. This autocomplete option is great if you have land ownership that's butting up against each other. This will then cause it to snap and share the boundaries. This one here you create using only right angles, so you don't have to try to guess to make sure that the angle is actually a right angle. We can do a circle, a rectangle, an ellipse. You can freehand it, or you can do an autocomplete with the freehand. We're going to be, and then you can also here, you can trace, and so what the tracing does is it follows a boundary, helps you snap to something that we can see on the map. And so what we want is this rectangle tool. And we can just start it, click it once. Go clear across the map to the other corner, click it, drag it down to the bottom right corner, and then you can double click to finish the sketch. And there it is. That was pretty easy. So now we can save the edit, save it here. I want to tell it yes, save all of our edits. And now the problem is, well, there's two problems. One, it's not transparent. And two, it's going to have a double layer where it overlaps the FS ownership. So if I change the drawing order here, my ownership's over the top of it, but now you'll see that the 3D relief doesn't show through because this pink layer is underneath the green layer. So to fix that, since we know what we're doing, we know we can use an erase tool to punch a hole in the pink layer using the green layer. And then we'll get a layer that only is the opposite of wherever the green layer is. I couldn't think of how to say that. So we'll go up to the Analysis tab, go to the Tools, let's search for Erase. Just remember it's Clip's evil twin. Input feature is what we're erasing from. That's our new other ownership. The erase feature is going to be our FS ownership. The output feature class is fine, but let's make sure it's going into that geodatabase, which it looks like it was not. So I'm going to change that to the geodatabase and give it the name Other Ownership Final. Usually when you name something final, it means you're going to have to redo it again later because you find something wrong with it. That's just a joke. That seems to be actually be true a lot. Okay. Seems to make sense. Let's run it. Okay, we got other ownership final. Let's uncheck the original other ownership. Now we can see that 3D relief. And let's make the other ownership final transparent. So I make sure that I have it clicked over here like that. Go up to the feature layer context menu, go to transparency. Let's bump it to 25. Look at that, but we don't like the pink color. So we are going to change the pink kind of looks like a Pepto-Bismol commercial or something. So we're going to change the color from that pink to white. Apply that. Oops, I changed the wrong one. Okay, make sure you change the right one. I'm going to change the pink to white, and then we will apply it. And look at that. So now we have a very nice uniform transparency across our map. The colors look nice. The white color is not drawing the attention of the viewer away from the green. And that's a little trick that if you, especially if you use other hill shades, they're much more gray and they look like the moon. And so if you have green here and then gray moonscape look here, it doesn't quite look right as a map. So this is just a little trick that uses a few of the skills that we've already learned, but also it also shows us that we can use a feature class just for the purpose of cartographic aesthetics, we would say. That this other ownership is not truly other ownership. We don't know what this all is out here. I mean, this is Forest Service over here. It's just on a different forest. But we created it just so the map would look nicer, just so the map would make more sense. So feature classes themselves are not always just for analysis or to represent something real. Sometimes we use them just to make our maps look nicer and look more presentable. So I hope that really helps. And one last thing I want you guys to do is just to test your skill set. We can uncheck these. Create a layer, create a feature class for Crater Lake. And so the way that you would do that, you can either use this raster or you can go to View and choose a base map layer that maybe helps you see Crater Lake a little better. Or my base maps. Sorry, it's not under View. It's under Map. So you go to Map, and then in order, I can click Base Map. I can choose one of these. Some people like to look at imagery and do it that way. I think, personally, this gray one is really easy to see and really easy to trace off of. So you choose whichever one you think works best for you. But you'll see, what I want you to do is you'll create a feature class just like we just did. Make it a polygon. Call it Crater Lake. Bring it in here. Edit it. But instead of using the rectangle one, you're going to use that polygon one. And so I'll show you here. So you're going to be using this one right here. And what you do is you click that one. You're going to look at Crater Lake, which is, I can't see it right now very well, but you're going to make it so you can see it. And you're just going to click, 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 click along the edge here as best you can. Follow it all the way around. When you get to the back to the start, double click and it'll finish the sketch. And then if you want extra credit, you can find out a way, you guys know how to do this, to make it so that there's a hole here for Wizard Island, okay? So you'll have to think about using some of the tools we used to punch a hole for Wizard Island here, okay? So, and then in your email when you turn this in, let me know in the email if you attempted that, okay? So I don't miss it. And so you'll turn that in, you'll have our other ownership final, you'll have a feature class for Crater Lake. And if you want extra credit, your feature class for Crater Lake will include a hole in it. So turn that in a week from when this is posted. and you guys will get your points for it. And I will see you on the next lab. Laters on the Menjay.
Latest on the Menjay.